Welcome back to another video. In this one, we're going to be hopping in the tent with Joel Nelson. He's going to talk about a really cool bite that he enjoys all winter long, and it's a great bite if you are trying to not be pigeonholed into those short bite windows that happen in the evening and at sunrise. So listen up, we got some good tips from Joel, and without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to him. He's going to talk about one of his favorite bites.
We're in shallow water right now, and I tell you what, these days I spend more time in water less than 10 feet with a camera down in a hub looking at fish. Typically it's bluegills, a lot of bass mixed in. We'll see pike today, we've seen walleyes too. It's unbelievable when you set up with weeds, you've got an underwater camera, you get direct confirmation of what they like, when they like it, and it's just a lot of fun. You see I've got my son Micah here with me. We have a lot of fun just going out fishing local lakes. During the day with these weeds, the fish are really comfortable, so it's a ton of fun to be able to set up like this, catch fish, not just during the peak flash bite hours, but all throughout the day. And we got a pike on the screen right in the background as we speak. Whoa. That's the fun of this stuff. Like, you're always entertained by what's going on screen, but then we've got dead rods, we've got tip-ups just outside, and I've been catching fish just as they come up from the bottom. Mike has been drawing in fish from distance, so I think that's a really key part of the strategy. He's got a rattle bait on. He's got a rippin' shad in that Wonder Bread color. I love anything bright. Wonder Bread, Purple Wonder. Those are good colors as attractor patterns. You need a little bit of clarity in the water to see what we're seeing right here. But typically winter bites allow for that unless you're in the dingiest conditions. So it's worthwhile to find one of those lakes that maybe you've written off. Maybe you don't think it's worth catching bass or pike or multi-species through the ice, but this is a lot of fun. We're warm, we're comfortable, we're not messing around, we're not waiting for a flash bite at dark, walleyes to push up against a break, and we only have 15-20 minutes of real peak activity. We've been seeing fish all day, and it's a real blast.
Now, one thing that's great about this bite is you don't have to be running and gunning all around. Obviously, you have that option, but it's awesome to just be able to set up a big hub house. You got a bunch of space, you can fish with a number of people, you can hang out, you can bring a lot of gear, you can eat in there. There's a lot of cool benefits. So I'm gonna pass it off to Joel. He's gonna talk a little bit about some of his thoughts and considerations when he's just talking about choosing the right house for this situation.
So there's a lot of hub options you can choose from, and my favorite for this kind of fishing with multiple people is the Auto Resort size. It's a wonderful size to be able to drill multiple holes in it. You've got a camera down. If you're running live scope, if you've got multiple flashers, there's a lot of options you have in that regard too. So having something a little bit larger, especially when you got machines to tow out the stuff, there's no penalty for having something a little bit bigger. The other nice thing is if you're pulling a sled and you don't have that option, to downsize a little bit. And that's why I go with either the lodge or the cabin. The cabin's the bare minimum as far as size for me and one other person. But when I'm fishing with my two boys, that lodge size is absolutely perfect for all three of us. We've had many a time we've set up on Mille Lacs, fished all day. We've gone back home, set up in the weeds just like we're doing right now. And it's totally comfortable, fits all of our gear. It's a wonderful size. We're always warm in it. I just have a little buddy heater. I don't have a big sunflower. I don't have multiple heaters. That's all it takes with the installation of these things. So it's really nice. Clear windows to be able to look out and see our tip-ups. Everything we need in here. It's a comfortable setup.
Next, Joel is going to talk about the whole system as far as jigging in the shack and then also having set lines outside of the shack and how those two things can kind of work together to help you catch more fish.
Beer beat.
Oh, there we go. That's a perfect example. That's the setup we're running. That's the game we're playing. Get that baby back, huh? Oh, fish in the house, fish outside of the house, splashing us on the way back. This is a lot of fun. Let's go back in the house, warm up, man.
So Micah just caught that nice pike, and that wasn't by accident. That's an area that's been getting hit pretty well. But we've already moved this shelter 2 different times. And anytime you're setting up in the weeds, you're staying stationary, it's best not to hedge your bets too much on only one location. And that's why we run extended sets. That's why we run tip-ups. That's why we run dead stick rods. We're actively fishing other areas while still being in the shelter. That's really important because this setup is in weeds, but weeds aren't of the same quality, size, species in one place, let alone everywhere. They're very different and differing. We're on top of a really good clump of cabbage right here. That's drawing in fish. Those areas are a little more sparse, just kind of out in the basin. You go this way, there's actually a lot more weeds. It's a little bit shallower. So again, we're covering multiple depth ranges, multiple types of weed or aquatic plant species, but we're also making sure that we're slowing down in here and getting the most out of the bite. So stationary, it does require a little bit of staying tight. We have to sit down, make sure we don't spook fish by hauling around all over the place, but by no means are we only fishing in the shelter.
Now, personally, I really love fishing in the weeds. There's a bunch of reasons. It's a good place to find a bunch of fish. There's a lot of action, and Joel likes it as well. Joel's gonna explain why he's a big fan of fishing up in the weeds.
Weeds are magnets for life, and that's really all we look for when we fish. I don't care if I'm out deep in a basin and I'm looking for pelagic roaming schools of minnows and crappies chasing them. I don't care if I'm up on a rock pile, summer or winter, and I'm looking for different things that are crawling in and out of the rocks that the fish are eating. And in weed beds, we've had bluegills, we've had big pike, that nice walleye, loads of bass. I'm sorry we haven't been able to show one just yet, but the night's still young. We got plenty of time. There's so many fish roaming these weed lines. They're all looking for the same thing. Cover, there's obviously good oxygen conditions here, and a lot of things to eat. So we'll keep at it, and who knows what'll show up next.
Now Joel is going to talk a little bit about presentation, some of his thoughts on lure choice, how he likes to work them, just to catch more fish, and kind of a little 1-2 punch that he likes to enjoy. So Joel's going to share some of those thoughts right now.
Remember how I talked about we've got different spreads and different options outside of the shelter? I'm thinking the same thing inside the shelter, but with our baits. So right now, Micah is ripping a ripping shad, and it's a great dinner bell. It calls in fish from the sides, and there's no doubt about it. We've had multiple fish come in and check out that ripping shad. It's a number 5 size. It's perfect for ice fishing. We've had Wonder Bread, we've had brighter colors, we've had all kinds of different options, and all of them have brought in fish from distance. I'm fishing something a lot more subdued, and I'm fishing for panfish right next to them. But what I've found is that, yeah, while the ripping shad will bring in predator species, it also brings in interested panfish species. They won't come right up to that bait typically unless he's being really subtle about it, but they're definitely going to come in and take on the tungsten flat fry jig that I've got on, or they'll even take on a small little jigging spoon. And that tends to be my number 2 move if I'm fishing multi-species. We'll have one person ripping a ripping shad. If we've got more panfish, we'll have something down like a tiny little jig like this tungsten flat fry. But as kind of an intermediate presentation, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna fish just an 1/8 ounce spoon. You can fish something with rattles, you can fish something with flash like this thumper spoon. Because it is clear water and a very visual bite, this thumper spoon has been producing fairly well. We caught that walleye on it. These kinds of spoons have produced every single thing in the lake. Big crappies will eat this no problem. So when you're fishing multi-species, an 1/8 ounce or a 16th ounce spoon catches almost everything in the lake. And that's really important to the part of the presentation, because if you were fishing just ripping shads, you might leave a little bit left to be desired. You'll call in a lot of fish, but you might not hook as many. If I was fishing only bluegill sized baits, I might not capitalize on some of the walleyes that'll come through. So fishing something that's fishy to a lot of different species, super important.
All right, that's about all we got for you in this video. Special thanks to Joel for sharing a bunch of really good tips. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something, make sure to hit that little red subscribe button down below, because we have a lot more awesome content coming in the future. And until then, we will see you in the next one.